when you are talking to someone and provide as much context as you want, and they're like, and they're seriously interested in the answer. They're not just asking you to say scam, but they say, "Hey, Omar, what is Web3?" What do you say back to them?
What is Web3? Okay. So I think Web3 is all about ownership and freedom. I think the easiest way, and I think a lot of people explain it this way, is by explaining what Web 1 and Web 2 is. And actually, yesterday I heard Web 2.5, but Web 1,
Yeah.
Web 1, is like the static internet where you're just reading what you see online. Web 2 is where there's some amount of interaction between what you're doing and like what the website is doing, like between you and the internet. And so, that's where we are now mostly, or that's what most people know about the internet. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, there's some amount of interaction between you and whatever centralized, entity is on the other side there. And then Web3 is where we're growing into, and what I think is the future. And Web3 is made possible by blockchain technology, and it allows you to, instead of just interacting with uh, another entity that owns all of your data, Web3, you do own all of your data. And so in Web3, blockchain technology makes it possible for you to own your content, basically. And so, when you can own your content, when you can own your data, what can you do with that? Like, what more can you create? And so that's why we're seeing so many Web3 startups that are coming to life because of this.
Yeah, it is that level of like autonomy and ownership that has never been possible before, that is also creating a lot of value, a lot of its speculative value, that has really created this whole wave of just growth in the industry. And I think we're seeing, as recently as yesterday, all the news about the head of product at OpenSea being charged or indicted by the FBI for insider trading, but more specifically, wire fraud and money laundering. Right. I've dove into it a little bit, but those are the types of things that are going to take this autonomy and ownership and legitimize it, in my eyes. Right. I'm not a huge fan of the approach personally, but nonetheless, you need these cases to happen so that the courts can decide how this is going to be regulated and how it's going to administer what little regulatory framework we have now, so that we can build a practical one. And you hope that the U.S. embraces it like they did the internet, which would be nice. But we're kind of in a blind spot right now.
And I completely agree with you. I mean, there's going to be a lot of growing pains. What happened yesterday is one of those growing pains, and people will discredit and shun the blockchain because of different scams that they hear about happening in the space. But those are the kind of things that happen as any kind of new space or industry is developing. People don't have a lot of information. They're learning, they're growing pains. We do need more regulatory guidance to step in and help clarify and shut these people down, and all of that kind of stuff will happen over time. And it's unfortunate now,
but also why you need a lot of lawyers, says two lawyers.
Yeah. That's why you need us.
This is not legal advice. Listen to the disclaimer at the beginning. But no, I appreciate that. That is a good way. I mean, it gives the context, going back to your definition of how you describe Web3, it gives the context of okay, let me put myself back in the AOL days and early days of Amazon, and I'm in Web 1. Then I'm going through to the next, where there's this stuff called UGC, or user generated content. There's blogs that pop up everywhere. You're able to create, but your creations are owned by somebody else, right? Now you can have followers and stuff like that, paid follows and all that. But ultimately your work is owned somewhere else. What this is doing now, Web3, this level of ownership, is it is now allowing everyone to be a creator, whether you're a writer, music artist, visual artist. And, one of the big promises, at least for me in this space, is just that, is to see what happens when we unlock the creativity of everybody, right? I mean, I'm an amateur, artist in my spare time, and I tend to do it typically when I'm a little bit more stressed, but like it's a way for me, if I wanted to go out and just create something and mint it, right? And be like, hey, this is Zach French's work, or this is Off Edge's work. And I want to share it with the world. And if I were to just post it on Facebook, then it gets a few likes and whatever, but maybe somebody finds value in my visual interpretation of something. So it's a really cool aspect of it.
It's kind of, I mean, Web3 is kind of like, if you think about Web3 as a place, and this might sound kind of weird, but America is so great because America is a place for small business. I mean, a lot of people don't know, but the majority of U.S. American citizens, the majority of people here work for small businesses and not, at the huge corporations that you hear about. Most people work in small business, and small businesses survive. They grind to survive. They're constantly adapting and innovating and coming up with really cool products and just doing great things to survive. And so Web3, people in Web3 can start or are starting all of these different little small businesses in a way. And an NFT project is like a small business. And so people can own their small businesses in Web3 and create value where value otherwise didn't exist. It's an opportunity for them to actually capitalize on it if they want to. If they don't want to, they can just own it. And it's a place where they can truly own what it is that they're generating.
Yeah, it creates almost like a small business, right? Like an individual, like sole proprietor
Yeah.
can now reach. I mean, I've heard some people speculate $1 trillion single person company at some point, right? Like that's obviously a very big bull case, but because of this level of ownership, one person whose digital wallet is connected to where it needs to be connected and who does the right things, say creating an NFT collection using their skills on the computer, can generate millions of dollars. Whereas before you would need a whole production team and you'd be signing off. Most of these artists too, just having spent so much time in this space, most of them, they had one true monetization metric, which was working for a corporation or an agency. Right? They went out, an agency that worked for the big corporation, right? Now I see these people, like they first start out and they're like, look what I did for Audi. Look what I did for BMW. Look what I did for this. Look at this cartoon I designed. But now it's, look what I designed for me and for my collectors, which is just, I mean, I don't know, makes me warm and fuzzy. Like literally giving me chills right now.
I mean, there are so many talented people that hit a wall. I mean, they hit a wall because, you have these big, companies that are in the way, they're dominating the space, and they make it very difficult for people to do anything on their own. And you have to go through them.
As they should. I mean, honestly, it's a good business practice. It's not it doesn't make me excited to hear that at all, but like you got to have your moat and you got to protect the shit out of it.
I mean, It makes sense. We understand why they do it. That's capitalism.
Yeah.
It's a good business practice for them.
Yeah. As an investor, right? Like that's the name of the game. But is there somewhere in between that maybe Web3 creates?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe so. I think one of my big theories since I decided that I was good at ideas back in the day was that we'll eventually move to almost entirely project work. And I think this is one of the biggest strides towards that. And what I mean by that is like currently the model is to grow a company of people because even if you pay those people a little bit more than what you're getting out of them, you have the consistency of having those people there, right? because the transaction costs of hiring someone and firing someone is very high. But we're getting to the point now where between software and blockchain technology and all these new avenues where you can really use the data of your business to make more meticulous decisions, someone can come in and be like, I actually just need a data scientist to visualize this data so that I can use it for A, B, or C. And you don't necessarily have to work there to understand how to do that, right? You have to know how to use the underlying systems. But we're moving more towards, like, whether it's individuals or just that ability to have that autonomy where you can just go into and show whatever specific niche of skills you have at a company and still help them out.
Yeah. And all of this was happening before Web3, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
or before Web3 came into the limelight. That's why we have freelancers and digital nomads, and all of a sudden you can make a living working on Upwork, where you can find your clients on there and just do projects when you feel like it and travel the rest of the time.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I mean, in fact, the Fiverr was where I designed my logo, right? And the person who designed my logo, that is his business, right?
Yeah.
His business is he's on a website, he's on this marketplace. And I assume he's not working somewhere else. He could be, but most likely this is a major stream of revenue for him because he's one of the top designers on Fiverr. So it's cool. It's cool.